All right, now we'll jump into the screen there, and you guys will all probably get something that'll pop up. So now let me go to my share screen, and we will begin here. So I just did a summary as we're coming off of this sugar-free challenge and how that kind of ties into what we're impacting on our cells, the difference it makes with making those lifestyle changes, and how it can then build on into other things that we're doing. So let me go into here and share this. And that bridges perfectly into the plateaus that we receive sometimes in our health journey, where we feel like we just don't know what to do, that something doesn't feel quite right, but maybe your labs are normal. And I've been talking a lot about maybe it's not even a normal lab, that there's things in there that we can still see to give us clues. But then this is the next step going deeper and something that we can support nationally that I'll go into. But first, I'm just going to describe a little bit. I remember this term back when I was in naturopathic med school, and I believe also in the neuroscience training, since this is like the core of how we get rid of our cells. So this is called a process of senescent cells, which are our older damaged cells. They stop working properly. They send these harmful signals out to the other cells. They can cause inflammation and damage, and they don't die or make room for new cells, which is the biggest part of this. They're also called zombie cells, if you've seen that anywhere. And they're just hanging on by a thread. Their DNA has something wrong with it, so it's not activated like it should be. And the telomeres, which are those ends that tell a cell when to die, the telomeres are at the end of it to where it should be dying, but it's not. So there's a process when our body is too overwhelmed by other things that it can't take care and clean up these cells, but they're still taking some of our energy. So if we look at how this fits in, here's a list of, some of these chronic illnesses that we're starting to see in almost everybody. If we look across the United States, we look across even the world now, we're seeing more of these. I'm not going to read through them all, but you can kind of see it affects every system in our body. And if we have one of these, we generally have more of them. So then if we go to a conventional doctor, generally they're going to be like, okay, go to this doctor for this, and this doctor for this, and this doctor for this. And they're each going to prescribe what they know for how to support this. And then you end up with this whole cabinet or this whole pill container of things that you need to do. And then you have a symptom from something you're taking, so you get another one to add on. So my point around this is, what if we look at it from a different way? So my name I haven't introduced, but I'm Dr. Alana McLaughlin. I'm a naturopathic doctor. So I take these and I look and I try to figure out what is the underlying cause of multiple things. Here's another component of it is autoimmune diseases are skyrocketing. So we have to figure out why. Like, why are these becoming so prevalent? And then what can we do about it? And as we're looking through, again, I'm looking through patterns. If you have one autoimmune condition, same thing with the others, we tend to have more going on because it's your body over on this side of the immune spectrum where it's attacking itself rather than taking care of the viruses and the bacteria and the funguses, things like that, fungi that are in our bodies. And we want our immune system really to be in the middle, and it can take care of either one or react a little bit. So if we're out and we have these different diagnoses coming on, and I like to look at a person and say, I'm not treating your diagnosis. I'm not saying you should get off of this or that, but I'm saying I'm going to look at it from how do we take this unhealthy body and become healthier? And this is going to be a model that Mike Reese is the one who created this, and he's also kind of a mastermind behind creating supplement protocols and whatnot. So if you look down there at the very bottom, you'll see the senescent cells. And we go back up to that and we see this autophagy. So we'll get into that. And then we see this middle part, these 6 M's that we'll talk about going into systemic inflammation overload. And there we see the autoimmune and the chronic illnesses. And the very top is our manifested symptoms. So generally, they're going to take manifested symptoms, break it into autoimmunity and chronic illness and these, and then start figuring out how do we get rid of this, this, and this. Well, those are also leading into this underlying systematic inflammation. So we're like, okay, well, where is that inflammation coming from then? We break it down into these 6 categories. to try to figure out what is out of balance, what do we need to support that will then take care of the inflammation, that will then take care of whatever else is going on above that. So we take care of one thing down here, it can take care of 10 things up above it. And then that all builds down into the autophagy is a healthy cell, or when we're getting rid of the cells that are not healthy. So we have really strong, healthy cells, these resilient ones, versus when something is out of balance, the senescent cell is kind of the one that's going to be like the bad apple in the barrel, right? Everything else or the other cells around are picking up on that, and it creates this huge cascade. So we're going to go to that specific point to help everything else above it. One of the components that we generally see on here is chronic inflammation. This term, we see it everywhere, right? Everything is about inflammation, except when it's not. Because if you look at labs, there are certain markers that indicate inflammation, and you've seen them where they don't have signs of inflammation. So then what is going on? Sometimes we do, and we can see, so many of these different factors that are involved. But then what is the focal point of chronic inflammation? How do we get at that? Which takes us to this next one as we break it down, right? Which is what we just saw. We have methylation, which methylation is so important, and it's connected to genetics. So what we have on here is if things are not properly methylated, our body can't use them correctly. So B vitamins is a big one for this. So especially your methylated B12 and your folate are two of the biggest ones because of how they impact our energy system. The next one down, mitochondria, which I already mentioned because they are so important. So these provide energy and repair. So these, if they're not working properly, that's when we get these cells that stay in place when they really shouldn't. The microbiome, everybody's heard about this, I would say, in probably the last 5 years. They call it the peacekeeper. So this is keeping our gut balanced, because as we learned this week in our sugar challenge, the gut balance directly connects to our brain balance, because we produce neurotransmitters in our gut that then directly impact how we feel, our emotions, our mind, our clarity, not as well as our digestion, but it creates such a huge impact. The other one on the other side, minerals. So these ones called the spark plugs, because it's that one missing component that when it's in there correctly, everything else is either going to work really well or it's going to go haywire. And this is that connection between deficiency and inflammation. The next one, cell membranes. So I told you we're going to go all the way down to the cell. These are the barriers that they have channels on them where we need minerals to tell us what comes in and what goes out. We need our cells, the mitochondria is within the cell, and it needs to have the energy to be pumping things out that we need to get rid of and bringing things in that we need for that cell to be healthy. So this is protecting our cells as well from, as you can see on there, harmful signals. The last one, the mucosal barrier, the defense line. So this is all the way from our mouth, all the way through our digestive tract. Our skin is made out of the same type of cells. And this is really within our gut particularly. You've probably heard of leaky gut. We should have these nice tight junctions within our gut. We have very small places where proteins can get through the things that we need to absorb. But if we have damage or inflammation and we have these gaps, this is how we get things through larger proteins that then start the cascade of the immune system responding. So these are the 6 big factors that lead to the chronic inflammation. But we're going to look and break down each of these. Well, what nutrients do we need to support each of these factors? So these are all, again, from Mike Reese. So I have to give him credit for taking, and I think he said it's been like 10 years of research and putting things together. So it's amazing that you can take and break each of these down, and you're like, okay, if I need to support mitochondria, that's a lot of different things to be taking to support mitochondria, right? But instead, we can optimize by having some of those in specifically formulated supplements that will get the results, and by filling in one gap, it'll help with others. I also though prefer to bring things in synergistically. So instead of, for example, staying in mitochondria, instead of just taking CoQ10, we're going to have one that maybe has 3 or 4 of those things in it. And that will then enhance everything's ability to work better. I think of this too as I'm looking through that I've done talks lately on glutathione. It's very similar in that we need certain things to make the glutathione work better, and the glutathione will make other parts of our bodies work better as an antioxidant. So these are kind of those 6 M's, breaking them down into lots of nutrients that I'm also not going to read, but you can take a picture of this if you're, on a device or whatnot, screenshot it or use the snipping tool if this is helpful for you. Want to just see like what do you already have that then maybe these would be helpful for. Our next step then is we're going to take the systems, and as we mentioned at the top of that, we have all these different things that you could be diagnosed with. And if we take and we look at it by a systems approach, though, and say, okay, we have this, and this happening, is there a category or maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 systems that are impacted by the nutrient deficiencies, the inflammation, the diet, the stress levels, and then this then shows you kind of some of those things of how we can take 5 different diagnoses or 10 different diagnoses and put them into one category. So then we know, okay, let's support this category. And I did this a couple weeks ago. Actually, I've been doing it quite a bit lately, of visiting with people, and that's the blood reading that I was doing. Say, let's look through your labs. We're going to pick the top 2 things based on the patterns I see. A lot of times it's methylation and immune support. Sometimes it's energy or blood sugar balance. So then we'll put just, simple, like 2 things that we can add in and see what cascade of difference that makes. And I've had really great results with that lately, which has been rewarding and nice to see, because it can be daunting and people are overwhelmed. People bring in, basketfuls of supplements and like, I've got all these things, what should I do? So I try when I can of like going through. It's not my favorite thing to do, but trying to be like, okay, this is what's happening, these are what's going to support that, so let's focus on this for right now. If people have a blank slate, it's a lot of times easier to be like, let's take this and this, and I want to check base in a couple of weeks and see how it's going. So this is how we can, again, take a screenshot or whatnot and say, okay, I have all these things, but is there a common thread between them that we then work on that? All right. So the whole idea behind this too, and I'm going to leave this link up just for a second. I was trying to figure out how to link this. I'll probably put it into the Facebook, and then I can also, actually, I can share it, I think, maybe in the chat. Let me see if I can copy that into the chat. So what this is the program that I am setting up, that I'm working with, is, let me stop the share here, is supporting all of those factors and going to that baseline level of how do you restore the cellular health? How do you clear out those zombie cells that are no longer working for us, but they're taking our energy, so that then they stop creating that bad apple effect, that the other cells around them can get the nutrients they need. And this, again, was created by the guy who puts together these formularies, and he works across multiple companies. So he's created index for, if you have this condition, he's networked like all of the top companies of like, these are the products that would support that condition. But I love this protocol for the simplicity. If you're watching this in real time, it's December, things are crazy, like we don't want to add on a whole bunch of extra stuff, but this is something coming off of, if you're doing the cleanse or the challenge, this is something easy to add in to see a result. And what it looks like is 15 days, you're going to do the senolytic cleanse. It's 1 bottle, 2 capsules per day. Then day 16 through 30, there's 2 products. It's Mago3, which is a high potency omega supplement. You're going to do 2 caps twice per day. And then the third part is the autophagy, which I mentioned, that's the one that like maintains the cells. So 2 capsules per day. So super simple, but it's a 30-day cellular reset to then get you going into your new years, because it's time for New Year's resolutions, right? To help you be more successful in that process. And I'm going to bring this and see if this will work in the chat. So what I've done is I've put this, and I'm hoping it works because I did it right before this, is you should be able to log in. And the amazing part is they have a sale on this right now. So they have a discount on that. So I'm passing that on to you. So it's usually $200, but because of the sale they're doing, I can offer it for 150. So I just have these bookings. It'll probably be just through this upcoming week. I'm gonna have to keep an eye on their page to know when I need to take it back up to $200. So if sounds like something that's of interest to you, jump on right now. I put in my link it'll get you the purchase. And once I see that, then we'll also have a 15-minute talk to go over, see if you have any questions and make it as easy as possible. Because I'm like, we can all find 15 minutes, right, in this busy holiday season. And then it'll be shipped directly to you. You have the instructions in the scheduling link. So if that is something you're interested in, that should be the easy way to do it. And I will also post this on the Facebook with the recording, if you're interested. So as I'm going through, does anybody have any questions? Let me turn the recording off and I'll see if there's any questions.